Hey guys, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto made harem with Sakurai? If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comment. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. So let us start the story.
Naruto sighed as he stepped off the train that took him from the airport. After living through the Fourth Shinobi War, killing the fake Madara Uchiha known as Kakashi's ex-teammate Obits, then fighting and ending Madara Uchiha himself brought back to life by that snake shit bastard Kabuto. Naruto had sealed all the Biju inside himself along with the goddess Kagaya and the Shinju after defeating her. But the fucking kicker was Satsuki Uchiha, the woman who said she loved him, betraying him after he took Madara and Obito's eyes he'd fused into the Sharingan and fused them into his own eyes. After she cut his left arm off, they both used Kamui, which sent Naruto here. It took most of the Biju's power to keep Naruto alive through the rift he was sucked in, which made them fuse into the Jubi to keep from leaving Naruto with just a crazy goddess inside of him. Naruto looked down at the prosthetic arm that was his left arm. He'd gotten a prosthetic after his second year in this world and using his mastery of Fuinjutsu to create seals that would let him use the arm like his flesh and blood arm, and created chakra pathways artificially with his seals so he could use two hands again to fling jutsu around. He flexed the plastic fingers and smiled. I'm glad I found a place for my business and a place to stay. Hopefully my supplies I couldn't seal up arrived. He thought as he walked down the street. He heard a woman whisper that it was tragic someone so young needed a prosthetic. I am 22, you damn witch. I just have my mother's genes. Which was somewhat true. Kagaya, though it'd be funny as he went through the rift to gift him with more of his mother's genes like her red hair and chakra chains, but also made him shorter. He used to be over 6 foot, now he was 5 feet 6 with his shoes on. You know I didn't mean to it on purpose, darling. How many times do I have to apologize? Do I have to give you my special massage, my love? Kagaya said in a husky voice. Naruto sighed. The only thing worse than a crazy goddess stuck in your mind would be a horny and crazy goddess inside his mind, sending him images of her giving him gratification in so many positions. Leave my pup be, you little pest. Don't worry, love, I am sure your new shop will be better than your old one in the US was. But it is nice to back in Japan where we came into this world. The Jubi, who Naruto had named Mononoke or Noke for short, said from her shrine inside his head. Kagaya and Noke had their own areas and shrine-like houses in his head they stayed in. Naruto headed toward the shop when he was thrown into a wall and a Nodaichi was stabbed into his prosthetic like she didn't realize it wasn't real. Weak little human. How can someone like me be reacting to a weakling like you? A silverish gray-haired woman wearing a tight black leather top, a miniskirt and stockings, over the shoulders wearing a gray haori with a strange crest on it. Naruto winced as her removed his fake arm and unsealing Samahata from the seal on his wrist and slashing at her as the bandages slipped off the blade wrapping around his right arm. Samahata doesn't cut, she shreds. Naruto shouted, kicking the ashen-haired woman back and slashed at her again, shredding her haori and pants. The woman grinned as her heart raced, and with a light blush on her cheeks she said, "Show me what you've got, my Ashikabi. Show me you're worthy of me." Naruto created a clone quickly and substituted with it using a quick Kwarmi no Jutsu. He then looked down from the roof he was on and groaned as he ran away from the situation. Damn, I've had that arm for almost 2 years. He sighed, having to seal Samahata back up and unsealed a black prosthetic made of plastic. He had to redo the seals again. He hopped back down to the ground in an alley in the north of Tokyo where the houses were more traditional. Now the place I bought was right next to my new home. He then saw the pile of crates outside of a large garage building next to an inn called Maison Azumo. Naruto sighed, having to use only one arm would take a while. A brown-haired man who looked like a lowlife wearing a wife-beater, ripped jeans and a leather jacket was walking with a fairly petite and short, fair-skinned girl with blue eyes and messy chin-length blonde hair. She was wearing a blue long-sleeved blouse with a white collar and a matching ruffled skirt, knee-high black boots and white stockings that stopped just above her knees. On his other side was a short, light brown-haired girl with hair that reached her neck, and was woven throughout with blue ribbons and gray eyes. She wore a form-fitting white gown with blue and black accents, a black choker, blue headband, black stockings, black boots, and long black gloves. The thing Naruto noticed was how she carried that massive hammer on her back. Naruto smiled as he heard him say, I'm sorry girls, I wish you didn't have a loser like me as an ashikabi. There was that word again. I don't like to ask Mia for food but we're broke and just because you're my Sekirei they deactivated your cards. The girls hugged him and the taller girl with the hammer said, "It'll be okay Seo-kun. Just have faith. I'm sure this Mia isn't the monster you've described." Seo shuddered as Naruto stepped over to them. "Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear but you need a source of money, right? My name is Naruto Uzumaki and I am opening up a restaurant right here and could use the help. Your friends could be waitresses." At this Seo smiled and shook Naruto's only hand. "Thank you so much buddy, you don't know how much this means to me. I'll do anything you need. You need information, I can help you get it. I'm Seo Karo and these two lovelies are Kuno and Yashima." Naruto smiled as he said, "Would you please tell me what the hell an ashikabi is?" Seo paled and said as he scratched the back of his head. "Well, that's kind of a long story. I can tell ya while we move stuff in." Seo and his girls helped Naruto get the restaurant set up and Naruto told Seo about himself and being from a different dimension. Yashima and Seo helped put the booths and tables in along with the bar while his other Sekirei Kuno swept everything up and polished the counters and tables. Of course he showed them that he had all his small things for the restaurant were sealed up in scrolls. Once they finished, Naruto, who had a clone, get groceries, made Seo and the girls 2 bowls of ramen each. Naruto looked down sadly remembering Ayame teaching him how to cook when he was younger. Naruto told them everything, from his birth to the 7 years he spent here in the world. Naruto then tossed a roll of bills. "That's what I've got in Japanese currency. I just got back from the US and haven't gone to the bank yet. That's about 200,000 American won, believe." Seo smiled and said, "You are a good person. Just give me a call when you open now." Which Sekirei said attacked you? Seo was racking his brain trying to figure out which one would just attack an ashikabi candidate. She was tall, maybe 5 feet 11, had ash-gray silverish hair and wore a gray haori with this crest on it. Also she was trying to cut me with a nodashi. Naruto said, drawing the crest of the Sekirei on a napkin. The girls gasped and Seo bit his lip. "Shit kid, that's the black Sekirei. She's the dog of MBI. If she's reacting to you, you've gotta be powerful. The girls and I gotta go shopping but if you need me you have my number." They stepped outside and Seo helped Naruto shut the doors. "Scum-san not coming to beg me for food?" a purple-haired woman said while smiling and sweeping up in front of the inn next door. "No Mia, I've gotten a job. Your new neighbor is a great guy. He's given me a job at his ramen shop and the girls will be working here too." At this Mia was shocked. But when she saw who her new neighbor was her heart skipped a beat and started to race. "Oh, you're Asama-san. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, we spoke on the phone." He pulled an envelope out of the jacket he'd put on before leaving and said, "This is 6 months' rent as we agreed upon." "Asama-san, you okay?" he asked, concerned for the woman. He put his hand to her head which brought her out of her funk. "Oh Uzumaki-kun, being awfully forward with your old landlady, aren't we?" As she spoke a Hania mask appeared behind her in a purple miasma. Naruto shook his head with a smile, not fazed by the mask. "I apologize for being forward but could you teach me that pretty please?" he said, pouting a bit. Using the puppy dog eyes no jutsu, combined with his small stature, made him look irresistibly adorable. Mia scooped him up in her arms and rubbed his cheeks against hers before she caught herself and set him down. Seo, seeing this, backed away slowly, dragging his Sekirei with him as he didn't want to get in the middle of a fight between his dimension-hopping new boss and the monster known as the Hania of the North. "My apologies Uzumaki-kun, you're just so cute. But I'm sorry, I don't know what you want me to teach you," Mia said as she moved hair from her face. She then realized something. "Wait, when I..." Naruto grabbed his bag with his good hand and growled out, "I don't purr," which made Mia giggle with her hand in front of her mouth, her face red. "You must be incredibly strong to make me react. Naruto-kun," she thought as she grabbed her broom and led Naruto inside to his room. "I already told you most of what's included in your rent. You get 3 meals but I am sure you'll be busy with your lunch rush. There's an onset right through this door and the bathroom is here. That's Kaguri's room there and yours is upstairs." She led him to his room 202 and said, "My room is at the end of the hall and the only other resident currently is Uzume," she said as a gorgeous brunette with long hair down to her but wearing an orange negligee and panties came out of a room and said, "Oh morning Mia, you finally adopt a kid?" Naruto growled and said, "I'm 22. Mia bopped them both on the head with a ladle she got from who knows where. No shouting inside Naruto-kun and Uzume. How many times do I have to tell you to wear clothes? Mia said before rubbing the spot she hit on Naruto's head. I don't think the cutie minds my state of dress, do you? Naruto was blissfully unaware of what was said as he was putting in content to Mia's head rub. Oh my god, you're purring, you're just adorable. Uzume exclaimed, snatching Naruto from their landlady and cuddling him against her massive chest. No, I don't want to die like this. Ero Sennin will never let me forget it, Naruto sobbed in his mind before a ladle smacked Uzume again. Naruto-kun, why don't you get settled in while I make lunch? Uzume, please get dressed, Mia said before heading downstairs. Uzume pouted, letting him go before heading into her room. Naruto went into his room and set his bag down. He looked around and lifted his shirt, showing his muscles. He heard a female voice coo and the sound of blood spurting out a nose. Using that time, he used his speed to grab 12 hidden cameras and microphones. He grinned evil, handing them to a clone who disappeared. He then unsealed his possessions, setting his futon in the middle of the room and putting his laptop on the desk. A few pictures went onto the wall along with some paintings as he put a cactus and bonsai tree on the windowsill. He leaned against the wall and began to meditate and go into sage mode. His eyes opened wide, showing the bar shape of sage mode and the orange pigmentation around his eyes along with amber iris. Holy crap, the redhead exclaimed as he felt 107 signatures that were completely different than the humans he'd interacted with before. He could feel 3 in the inn right now. Some Sekirei felt different than others. The ones that were warm and connected must be ones that were winged to an ashikabi. There were the regular pulses which were unwinged, but he could sense a few with a pull that felt warm. Those might be the ones that could be RW acting to me. He thought from what Seo told him about Sekirei before he realized something. So we do have a secret pervert hiding here. I'm a mess with her so bad, he said with a vulpine grin that scared Mononoke and Kagaya. As Naruto was feeling out energy on the other side of town in MBI headquarters, Karasuba was swearing up a storm. I need you to find this bastard now. She was wearing a black tank top and sweats she had to buy from a shop because that blonde asshole had destroyed her clothes, including the haori she'd had for years. Karasuba-kun, we will find your ashikabi. If he is able to get such a strong reaction from you, he may be able to be the ashikabi for the disciplinary squad. A man in all white with white hair said as he cackled like a nut job before getting hit by the sheath of Karasuba's nodaichi. The nut job was Hiroto Manaka, the founder of MBI. I won't share him with anyone. If any bitch reacts to my ashikabi, I will kill them, she said, tossing Naruto's prosthetics to a gray-haired woman. Here, maybe you can get some of his DNA. I want to fight him again, then have him wing me as I take him over and over again. The woman, otherwise known as the director and head adjuster of the Sekirei plant, Takami Sahashi, looked at the arm and said, well, I am just glad this isn't a real arm. I'll see what I can do. After a few hours, Karasuba got impatient and started to break things in Manaka's office. Takami came back in with the arm and placed it on Manaka's desk. This thing is amazing. I've never seen something so simple yet complex. There is no technology in this arm. See, these tattoos on it work like the Sekirei seals, but they allow the person wearing the prosthetic to work it like it was a flesh and blood limb. Think of the money we could make mass producing this and selling them cheaply to hospitals. They'd buy them by the truckload. But I was able to get a tiny bit of DNA. When you cut the arm, you sliced the stump he had it connected to, which led to a tiny bit of blood inside the arm. Your ashikabi's name is Naruto Uzumaki, 22 years old, and he is an author, artist, and traveling chef. He just arrived here today from California in the United States, where he lived. That's all I have on him until he makes a withdrawal from his bank or buys something with a credit card. I don't have a phone number yet, but I am working on it. It just seems like he didn't make a splash in the world till he was 15. Nothing really special about him at all aside from the car accident where he lost his arm at 15. At this, Karasuba smiled. I will find you, Naruto Uzumaki, and you will be mine. Shadows, that's all Naruto saw until a figure emerged. Man, oh man, what a figure. She was a dark-skinned woman with jet black hair. She was slightly taller than him and she had a slender body that Naruto couldn't stop staring at. Her attire consisted of a bikini top beneath a small hooded shawl, a buckled sarong, and leather knee-high boots to complete her black attire. Attached to her hip was a curved dagger in a sheath. She smiled at Naruto and said, Ashikaba-sama, I will find you. Wait for me. With that she disappeared into the shadows. Naruto shot up out of his bed with a gasp and smiled. Then he heard a knock on his door. Come in. Uzume opened the door with a smile and said, Mia asked me to tell you breakfast is ready. She then handed a familiar orange book to him with a purple-covered book and a pen. Please sign these? I love all of your work and it took me a bit to figure out from a radio interview you did. Naruto sighed and said as he took the books and signed them. Yeah, well, I am not the author of the first 4 Icha books. Those were written by my godfather. When he passed away, he left me the right to his books and asked me to publish them. He was a self-proclaimed super pervert. But that got me into writing myself, which is how Cold Heart came to be. Then I wrote a collection of books about dreams it had. That's how the story of Arashi Shinobi of Legend came to me. Uzume squealed and hugged him, which made him blush as she was just wearing a tight purple tank top with a star on it and a pair of black booty shorts that looked painted on. He was currently being squished by Uzume's chest and his face. I am tapping out. Can't breath. I'm coming, Samui-chan, he shouted into Uzume's chest. She lifted him up and said, does my cutie not like being snuggled? She teased him, rubbing his cheek, which he turned away from and pouted. I'll be down in a minute, I need to wash up. Naruto passed by Uzume, who had red adorning her cheeks as she breathed hard. What the? How can I be reacting to 2 different people? His feels so much stronger than Chiho-chan too. She thought before heading downstairs. Naruto came down a few minutes later, fixing the sleeve of his left side so people wouldn't stare at his prosthetic. Mia noticed and said, Is everything okay, Uzumaki-kun? Naruto shook his head and said, No, I just hate using regular prosthetics. I miss the one I designed. But because it was very metal and I didn't want to set off sensors, I put it in its case. As I left the airport, some gray-haired girl stole my case with my arm in it. She threatened to cut me too. She had a large katana and nodaichi, I think. At that, Mia dropped a plate which was grabbed quickly by a silver-haired young man. Naruto couldn't tell with their feminine build and flat chest, but he could feel another warm chakra he could sense. Oh, she's stealing from poor cute foreigners now? If I see her, I will try to get your arm back, Uzumaki-kun. Mia said, a sinister look in her eyes. Naruto then smiled at the silver-haired person who reminded him of a effeminate Kakashi. Oh, hello, you must be Kagari. Mia told me you work as a host. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, please take care of me, he said with a cute smile that made Kagari blush. They shook hands and then sweet breakfast quietly. Before Moya broke the tension. So Uzumaki-kun, when do you intend to open up your shop? Naruto put down his chopsticks and scratched his cheek a bit. Well, I was hoping to get a good look around the city first. Maybe by Friday I'll open. Seo still needs to be trained on my recipes and how to man a grill. I know it says Uzumaki ramen, but I am hoping to bring some Western items to my menu if you don't mind me using you guys as test subjects along with the pervert hiding in the hidden room. Mia stared harshly and said, I don't know what you're talking about. Since my accident 7 years ago, I can sense people's auras. Last night there were 3 auras in the building aside from me, and today there are 4. Plus I saw light peeking from under the bottom of the false wall. He said, using the idea he'd gotten years ago when people asked why he couldn't be surprised or snuck up on. Matsu might as well come out then. A voice said as an orange-haired woman entered the room and sat down as Mia went and got her plate she usually kept in the kitchen. You call me a pervert, but you strip to my camera blatantly. Then I find out you write my favorite books, she said, squirming a bit as Naruto smelled a honey-like scent. Bam! A ladle smacked both Matsu and Naruto on the head. Illicit activities are prohibited in Mason Izumo and Uzumaki-kun. What does she mean by you writing that smut she reads? Mia was now wielding 2 ladles that were on fire, and behind her the Hania mask he saw before evolved, so there was blood dripping from its mouth and a sword between its teeth. Oh, my godfather wrote the Icha series, but he passed before his masterpieces could be introduced to the world. So in his will he bequeathed the rights to the books and asked as his dying wish I get them published outside of our small village into the world. Then I wrote my own series that's much more popular than his. Frozen Heart was my first book, and then Lonely Heart and Broken Heart. I'm finishing up the latest soon. I think I'll go do some painting today to gather my thoughts. This surprised the other residents of the inn. A famous author and cook, to top it off he was also an artist. Kagari was shocked that Naruto was unaffected by the Hania mask. The Hania disappeared and Mia smiled at the red-headed shinobi. If you don't mind Uzumaki-kun, I'd like to join you. I need to go shopping anyways and find the one who took your arm. Matsu and Uzume, you have chores to do. The two Sekirei nodded their heads, not wanting to face the wrath of the Hania. Naruto smiled and helped clean up after breakfast. I just need to get my art bag and jacket, he said as he went upstairs and grabbed a bag with canvas inside along with paints, charcoal, and attached to the back was a collapsible easel, and a plastic jar filled partially with water was in one of the pockets on the side. Naruto slipped his bag on after he put his dark blue jacket on. The interesting thing was a 10-tailed fox was embroidered on the back of it with a little rabbit on his lapel. As he stood by the door, Mia noticed a strange strap on the jacket. What is the strap for Uzumaki-kun? Naruto smiled and showed her by lifting the strap, which caused his prosthetic to move up. He secured the strap to the buckle on his right shoulder and said, "It's just so I can hold a backpack. Without most of the muscles in my bicep, I can't hold the straps well. So I designed this for my jacket. I had 2 jackets, but I had to throw the first away after it got shredded yesterday." He held his good arm out to Mia in a gentlemanly fashion, which made the landlady giggle. She took his arm and they left the inn together. I dunno if I can last with him around. His aura is powerful, I might jump him, Uzume said, rubbing her thighs together. Matsu nodded her head in agreement. When he gets back we should talk to him, Uzume-tan, Matsu stated as they went to start the chores Mia assigned them. Naruto was standing in the park having parted ways with Mia. He had an easel out and was painting the lake and scenery of the park when he heard a slight noise behind him. "Whatcha doing?" a female voice said as he turned his head to see the dark-skinned girl from his dreams standing there gazing intently at his painting. "Painting some happy little trees," the redhead said jokingly, but he didn't think the girl got the reference. "You're the girl from my dreams. Thank you for that. My dreams are normally unpleasant," he said, to which the girl looked at him sadly. "Oh, you are most welcome, Ashikabi-sama. I told you I'd find you." Naruto smiled and turned fully to her. "You're fine with having a cripple like me as an Ashikabi?" Yahan just nodded her head and pulled him into her arms, careful to not hurt him. "You are my Ashikabi-sama. I'll love you forever no matter what," she said before pulling his chin up and kissing him deep on the lips. A bright light shone as shadowy wings erupted from her back, thrashing as if she were able to control them. "I am Sekirei number 57 Yahan, and by the shadow of my contract my Ashikabi's enemies will sink into darkness forevermore." Naruto smiled and said, "I am Naruto Uzumaki, and by the spiral of our contract I will protect you forevermore." Yahan frowned and bopped her destined one on the head. "No, that's not how it works. I protect you, silly." Naruto smiled slyly as his eyes changed from their usual sapphire blue to red ringed eyes with 3 tones around the rings in what looked like a maelstrom. "I am perfectly able to fight alongside you," he then explained, being from another world and everything that's happened up to now. "I figured there was a reason that so many Sekirei seemed to be reacting to you. Now I know." Naruto and Yahan turned and saw Mia standing there with a knowing look holding her groceries. Naruto sighed and made a hand sign, and a clone appeared and took the bags, disappearing in a red flash. Both were slightly surprised as Naruto said, "Shadow clone jutsu. I can make up to 1,000 without feeling any fatigue. They're solid clones that disperse after one hit. They're gold for learning things and relying information." Mia put a finger to her chin and said, "I apologize, Uzumaki-kun, but I'd ask a favor of you. Could you use that technique and the aura ability you have to keep an eye on the unwinged birds?" Naruto nodded but replied with sternness, "Yes, I can. I was planning on doing that to keep forced wingings to a minimum. But I would request that you tell me the truth of the Sekirei, the whole truth." He looked her in the eye, stating he wouldn't be lied to. While finishing his painting up and packing his supplies, Moyed told him everything about the Sekirei that he hadn't already been told by Seo. After Naruto packed up his supplies, he asked Mia softly, "The one who attacked me and took my arm, she's a Sekirei too, right?" "I mean, that's what Seo-san said. He told me I should be scared of her. When I fought her she didn't hold anything back. Without my special arm I can't use my favorite weapon." He pouted, which caused Yahan to squeal at how cute of an Ashikabi she had. Naruto finished packing up and was about to put his pack on when Yahan took it, sank into his shadow before returning without the pack. I put it back in your room and left your painting out to dry, Naruto-sama," she said, which made Naruto pat her on the head. Mia sighed as she answered Naruto's question. "That's Karasuba. She was on the 2 incarnations of the disciplinary squad and is said to be the head of the 3rd. She must be reacting to you. Please be careful." Naruto nodded before saying, "We should go get you some clothes for every day and see about getting the uniforms for the restaurant. I already have the sizes for Seo's girls, so we just need to get yours." As they headed through the shopping district, Naruto noticed that they were being followed. He was glad they were almost done and whispered, "Ya-chan, bring these back home but stay in my shadow. Mia-chan, we need to find somewhere that's abandoned." Yahan disappeared with their bags, and from the shadows Mia's katana was slid into her hand. Moya winked at Naruto's shadow, which swirled a bit. As they entered an old warehouse, Naruto took his jacket off and tapped his finger to a seal on his wrist. In his hand was a beautiful katana in a ruby red sheath. Using his prosthetic, he pulled a crimson red blade. "Benaheim was my mother's sword. It got its color from the blood of 1,000 enemies and has a nasty surprise," he said as he and Mia faced none other than Karasuba, who was looking at the redhead with lustful eyes and a burning hunger. Then they turned sour and she growled. At the sight of Sekirei #1 with her ashikabi. "Get away from him. He belongs to me," Karasuba shouted as she charged forward, her nodaichi drawn and ready to cleave her former superior. Naruto flashed in front of Mia and caught her blade with his. "You won't catch me off guard this time. Now give me back my arm," he said, his eyes in their full Jubi form Sharingan with a black slit down the middle. Crimson and black chakra flowed off him and his whisker marks darkened. Standing there in a defensive stance, Mia was shocked at his raw power that drew her in and made her want to be close to him. She could see it was affecting Karasuba, but not in the same way as he. "His power is staggering, but it's just making her even angrier," Mia whispered as Karasuba kept trying to break his guard, but each time he blocked it and cut at her with his own attacks. Each time he cut her, she tried to hammer at him in a berserker rage. She jumped back, gasping, wondering why she felt exhausted. "I see you're feeling the effects now. In my world, Benaheim drains chakra each time she cuts by drawing your energy from your blood." He wiped sweat off his forehead and grunted as he was punched in the stomach by Karasuba. Naruto winced as her sword stabbed into his chest before he disappeared in a puff of smoke with a log in his place. Naruto made a quick prayer to the log, which Karasuba just sliced into firewood. Mia had jumped forward in an upward slash at her opponent, which was blocked at the last second. The two Sekirei traded blows, their outfits getting cut and blood flowing freely. That is until Karasuba broke free from their battle to dash at the resting Naruto, her sword poised to cleave him in twain. "Naruto!" she shouted as Yahan pulled Mia into her shadow world and in front of Naruto, where she blocked the strike. She kicked Karasuba back and went to strike back when, clink, her sword broke in half. The sword that was given to her by her dearly departed Takehito. Tears flowed into her eyes as she dropped the broken blade to the ground before something was pushed into her hand. "Please use her," Naruto said as he stood back up. "I am only gonna ask one more time. Give me my arm." Karasuba growled and said, "Wing me and I'll give you anything you want. I want to be your first and only." Naruto's eyes narrowed and whistled. Karasuba flipped to the side as she saw her ponytail fall to the ground and number 57 appear beside her ashikabi. "You shadow bitch, you took him from me. I'll kill you," Naruto said softly as he created clones to distract Karasuba for a second. "If you can distract her, Mia, I have an attack that will disable her. When I do, Yahan, send her back to MBI in a shadow." The two women nodded and Mia attacked Karasuba, giving Naruto the time he needed. He charged up Suiten and Raiden chakra into his hand before disappearing. Uzumaki secret technique, storm style. 1,000 years of death. He appeared right behind Karasuba and stabbed his right hand right against her ass, shooting the woman into the air and knocking her out as she was soaked and twitching from the electric shock. Mia and Yahan stared at the scene with jaws dropped before Naruto snapped his fingers to get Yahan to remember her part. Yahan dropped Karasuba from her own shadow out of the warehouse. She fell in a twitching pile right on top of Manaka as he was making a dumb dramatic chair swivel. Naruto picked up Karasuba's nodaichi and sealed it away before handing the sheath for Benaheim to Mia, who sheathed it and tried to give it back. "No, it's my fault your sword broke. Please keep her in recompense of my idiocy. I shouldn't have dragged you into this." I should have just winged her. I'm sorry. A loud slap was heard and Naruto looked up at Mia, who had tears in her eyes. What she did to Takehito I will never forget, and you're right, you should wing her. You are her Ashikabi. If you don't want to wing her because of me, please don't let her hurt because you feel it would be disloyal to me that you add her to your family. We are Sekirei beings that were made to love, even if the way she does is odd. You're the strongest person either of us have met, and I've never felt anyone as powerful as you. She leaned down and hugged the redhead to her and lifted his chin up like Yahan did. Mia kissed him deeply, pulling his smaller body to her as he accepted it and kissed her back. Bright wings emerged from Mia's neck, the feathers like katana blades or that were red on the edges. By the blade of my pledge, my Ashikabi's worries will be annihilated forevermore. Yahan noticed something as she saw Mia's neck. Mia, there's a spiral where the yin-yang should be. Mia frowned and checked Yahan's to see hers had a spiral as well as a 10-tailed fox around the wagtail as if it was protecting it. Oh, that's my doing. I used my chakra to create something that will protect you from being terminated if an enemy used their Norito. Seo basically gave me the entire GIST. Naruto said before falling to the ground exhausted. Mia picked up her Ashikabi as Yahan grabbed Benheim and Mia's old blade. She took Mia by the shoulder and brought them outside Maison Izumo. Back at MBI, Karasuba was getting out of he bath, severely upset about two things. 1. Her Ashikabi took her sword. The second thing was what pissed her off the most. That fucking bitch Mia winged herself to her Ashikabi. Manaka appeared on her TV screen and said, "Karasuba, there is someone here who said they can help you get your Ashikabi." He had a sinister smile on his face that made Karasuba grin herself. She grabbed one of her spare katanas she used to practice and got dressed. She entered Manaka's office where he was sitting at his desk. He had the biggest, dumbest smile on his face. Beside him was Takami Sahashi, the head adjuster and head scientist. A woman was standing talking to the pair before turning to face the black Sekirei. She was quite tall and wore black biker pants that hugged her body like a second skin, high-heeled leather boots, a black shirt with the same red swirl Naruto had, but it was stretched out to accommodate her large bust. A dark gray duster jacket with a purple belt was worn over and unzipped. On the back was a red and white fan with the same red swirl in the middle. The woman wore a green crystal on a black thread around her neck. She had long black hair done into a braid, but the curious thing was the top of her hair resembled a duck's butt. She had a wry smile on her face and her eyes intrigued the Sekirei. One was gray with rings and the other was red with red symbol that looked like the radioactivity symbol. Her eyes turned black, the unusual colors gone, as she spoke. "I hear you found someone I've been searching for." Karasuba scowls at the human, her hand on the hilt of her sword. "And why would you want my man?" Karasuba said before the woman disappeared and Karasuba felt a blade against her neck. "Naruto Uzumaki is my future husband. I am Satsuki Uchiha Uzumaki, founder of Kanotech, who've just merged with MBI. They get use of my company for this game." She removed the blade and stepped away. For the first time Karasuba was afraid. Afraid she was going to lose the one thing she wanted in this world aside from killing her. "What do you want in return?" she asked as Satsuki pressed a small piece of paper to the back of Karasuba's neck before speaking. "I want my husband. I don't mind sharing him with you, as I hear that you're reacting to him. I saw from my Sekirei's video that you're strong." A gray-haired woman in glasses waved from the couch. She had a tablet in her other hand which played the fight on a loop. "You got yourself a pervy voyeur too," Karasuba said, which made the girl blush. "Kochu is a good girl. She does whatever I ask," Satsuki said, which made the bespectacled Sekirei beam with pride. "So if I help you get him alone, I can wing myself?" "No strings?" Karasuba asked with a frown on her face. Satsuki nodded and blew some hair from her eyes. "I just need one thing. Kill all of his Sekirei. You should be his only one." At that the dog of MBI smirked and said, "Deal." Naruto groaned as he woke up in his futon. Yahan was curled into his side, her head nuzzled into her chest lovingly. Her arms were wrapped around his stump protectively. He yawned and made a clone one-handed to Kawarmi with. He tried to stand but tripped as he didn't notice that Uzume was wrapped around his legs like a boa constrictor. He did a second Kawarmi before heading to his desk. He turned the lights on and grabbed his heat gun and ink well before he began to make the seals for his new prosthetic arm. The duo-haired shinobi used the heat gun to make the seal section indents before conducting chakra into the ink like tattoos. Once he finished, he tried the arm on linking it with his chakra. His fingers wiggled on the prosthetic as he moved it around. He did a silent arm pump so he didn't wake the girls. He stood up and stretched out a bit happily before leaving to shower. He'd worked up a sweat fighting Karasuba yesterday. He put a robe on and headed to the bath. He didn't like the robe as Mia AMD the girls had picked it out for him. It was a cute child's robe with a little fox head hood and the belt was its tail. The shinobi yawned as he slipped into the cubby room. He took his robe off and tossed his dirt clothes in the hamper before putting his clean clothes robe and arm in his basket. He walked into the bath and blushed as he saw Mia washing herself. "Oh, good morning, Naruto-kun. I didn't think you'd be up early. Especially after Uzume and Matsu jumped you last night and winged themselves to you." Naruto nodded his head as he sat down beside her and was about to clean himself when Mia took the sponge from him. She kissed his forehead before cleaning him. No, my cute little Ashikabi, it's my duty to take care of you," she said sweetly as he blushed red. He took the sponge from her to wash his privates before he went to sit in the bath. She sat beside him pulling him to her chest as she rested a washcloth over his head. "I know yesterday was exhausting, but you do have to open your shop soon. We also need to find the rest of your flock." Naruto sighed, he just wanted to go explore a bit before doing anything else. "Oh, okay, Mia-chan, I guess I can do that. I do need to get a feel for the area first. So I'll be leaving for the day to go look around." He stood up to leave the bath as Mia frowned sadly. He's being a bit difficult with everything, but it's understandable. He has taken everything easily though. I hope he'll be okay with everything, she thought to herself as she relaxed. Naruto tossed the washcloth into the hamper as he changed and went to make breakfast before heading out. "Yahan, I know you're watching," he said as his first Sekirei smiled and slipped from his shadow. "Master, are we going exploring today?" Naruto nodded and put a short-sleeve hoodie on with the Uzumaki crest on it. He left the house with Yahan in his shadow. Uzume pouted and said, "How come I can't go too?" Naruto sighed and said, "Two reasons. One is that if it looks I'm by myself it'll make it easier for me to observe and I can blend. You're abnormally beautiful and would attract attention. Secondly, you have a task. Remember that I asked you to make the new uniforms for the restaurant. Here's money for fabric." He kissed her forehead and snuggled her close before he headed out. He started roof hopping, spreading his chakra out. Once he got downtown he noticed something strange. His clan's crest was everywhere. What in the hell is going on here? Yahan pointed to a TV screen that showed a press conference. "Master, look." The TV showed Manaka standing at a table with Takami Sahashi standing beside him. On the other side of the table was a woman Naruto recognized. "No, it can't be," he whispered softly. "Today we are here at MBI to report the merger between genetics and prosthesis company Kanotech and MBI. The CEO of Kanotech Satsuki Uchiha Uzumaki and MBI CEO Hiroto Manaka are both here to sign the paperwork for the merger." Naruto tuned it out as he punched the roof he was on, shattering the bricks, causing Yahan to look at her Ashikabi. "That's her, right, master? The one who betrayed you and took your arm?" Yahan asked with venom in her voice. She hated the woman for what she did to her Naruto. She made a shadow and pushed the rubble Naruto had created into it. On the TV the rubble fell onto Satsuki, who dodged it gracefully as everybody gasped. Naruto sighed and said, "She's just as crazy as ever. I can't believe she decided to add my last name to her." He took a few breaths and felt two sets of arms wrap around him. "Naru-kun, I felt your sorrow through our bond. I couldn't leave you to it," Mia said as she held him close with Yahan. The shinobi cried a bit as they just sat there. Naruto felt a pop and stood up. "I found two Mia. To the south, they're working at a maid cafe and hunting other unwinged Sekirei. I think I'll take my mind off this by going to deal with the naughty birdies." Naruto disappeared in a shower of leaves, Yahan disappearing behind him. Mia just giggled at her Ashikabi before heading back home. Naruto hopped onto the ledge of the building in an alley as he watched the twin Sekirei attack a tall, big-eyed black-haired girl. He jumped down, grabbing the twins as their lightning shot through his prosthetic, charging his Raiden chakra. The girls looked at him wide-eyed. They blushed at the man holding their arms in his hands. "Hey, what's the big idea, buddy?" Hibiki shouted while Hikari was staring into Naruto's eyes before she hugged the shinobi. Ashikabi-sama, she shouted as Hibiki realized they were in front of him. The man they'd been looking for while slimming down the competition. She jumped and hugged him too as he struggled to stay on his feet. Calm down, girls. My name is Uzumaki Naruto and we can talk later. First let me make sure this other bird is okay. He set the two girls down as Yahan stepped from his shadow to keep them from jumping him while he was checking on the other Sekirei. He knelt down at the downed girl and said, "Are you okay, little bird?" The Sekirei stood and looked down at Naruto, smiling at him, calling her little. "I am fine, little cutie." She felt her breath hitch and smiled as she leaned down and kissed the duo-haired shinobi. "I am Sekirei number 19 Ikki. By the swords of my contract, my Ashikabi's enemies will be shredded, forevermore." Naruto grinned and said, "I am Uzumaki Naruto and by the spiral of my clan I will care for and protect you, forevermore." The tall ravenette frowned and bopped him on the head. "No silly, I'm the Sekirei, I protect you." He smirked and said, "You'll see. Now I think it's there." He was cut off as the twins jumped him and they both kissed him at the same time, Hibiki grinding against his knee. "We are Sekirei number 11 and number 12 Hibiki and Hikari. We're the pledged thunderclap. No disaster will hit our Ashikabi. Forevermore." They then covered his lips and said, "Don't even think about it, you silly boy. Now let's go somewhere we can talk." The twins took each of his arms and dragged him away with Yahan sinking into the shadows and Ikki following behind them. "Hey, wait for me, you three," she said as they kept moving until they were at the inn back up north. Naruto sighed and opened the doors to the restaurant. He made a few shadow clones to cook for them while he talked. The twins and Ikki had dropped jaws at seeing their Ashikabi making clones of himself. He then explained to them about being from another world and what happened between him and Satsuki Uchiha. The girls had tears in their eyes, and if it weren't for the counter having hot food on it, he was sure they would have jumped it and cuddled him. The small duo-haired Ashikabi smiled as he closed up and led his budding flock to the inn. Mia smiled and said, "Oh, Yahan told me you'd gotten more birds. Hibiki and Hikari, Takahito's favorites. So nice to see both of you. I'm so happy we share an Ashikabi." At that revelation, Hikari shook Naruto while shouting, "Why didn't you tell us you had winged the pillar?" Naruto kawarmied with a lamp and said, "'Cause you didn't ask who I'd winged. You three are number 5, 6, and 7. The twins just sighed before kissing Naruto on each cheek. "Mia, where is Naruto's room? We have our things in our bags outside." Ikki looked down sadly before having her arm tugged. Naruto smiled up at his tall dual-wielding Sekirei and said, "Ikki-chan, I'm a shadow clone of the boss. We're going to go shopping for your things. Let's go." Ikki smiled happily as she held the clone's hand. The feeling she got was almost as warm as the one she got from touching the real Naruto. Naruto was standing in the yard with Yahan sitting watching intently as he took his shirts off and fought against 3 different clones. He switched styles fluidly, slamming his fist into each clone while the clones kept respawning, attacking the shinobi in threes. He flipped and stood on one hand, kicking the clones away before jumping into the air and slamming his leg down onto the last clone. He took a deep breath before he heard a round of applause. All of the residents of the inn were standing or sitting, watching his workout. "Wow, that was so cool, Naruto-kun. I could barely follow you because you were so fast," Uzume said from her spot beside Yahan. Hikari was wide-eyed at the display she had just seen. Hibiki was smiling and clapping at the display. Yahan was just smiling happily, and Matsu was recording the training. Mia was sipping a cup of tea as she watched her beloved. Kagari was leaning against the wall watching with a wry smile. Ikki had just returned and smiled before jumping out and saying, "Ashikabi-sama, please show me how strong you are by sparring with me." Naruto smirked and tapped his hand to his heart. A strange blade appeared in his hand. The hilt looked like the handle and chamber of a gun with a long blade protruding where the barrel would be. "This is the sword my mother designed for me. I called it Foxhole. It conducts the energy inside of me called chakra into bullets I can shoot out. Aside from Benaheim, it's my only one-handed sword I can use currently. The only other one I have needs to be repaired. The rest of my blades are too dangerous to use on comrades. Like the one you used to shred my favorite Haori," Karasuba said, sitting on the roof of the inn. She dodged a teacup before jumping as Mia had stolen Foxhole from her new husband to cut Karasuba. She landed back by Naruto handing him his blade. I am sorry, it's a reflex." If it weren't for Naruto-kun, I'd kill you on sight. Now explain why you're here. She held Naruto's hand with a stern look on her face as Naruto looked at the silver-haired woman. His right hand was gripping his blade. If you felt I was your Ashikabi, why did you try to kill me? What would it have accomplished to kill your supposed soulmate? How would you have felt if you killed me when we met? This took everyone off guard, especially Karasuba. I fought you to prove you were strong enough to be my Ashikabi. To prove that my love for you was strong enough. But we cannot be partners yet. She drew her spare sword as she said, I had to kill these weaklings. Naruto growled and stood between Karasuba and his girls. Mia had Benaheim in her hands due to Yahan, who was beside the landlady. Uzume appeared in a long bolt of cloth covering her entire body. Hibiki and Hikari were charging electricity through their bodies as Ikki held her Nodaichi ready. Kagari and Matsu had gone inside. Matsu, as soon as she heard Karasuba and Kagari had left for work because they couldn't fight at full power without their Ashikabi. Naruto cracked his neck as Mononoke and Kagaya were shouting at Naruto not to do anything to rash. Don't be stupid, pup, fight her in your unique way. Kagaya was of a similar mind. That bitch will not hurt you, my love. Be a good boy and teach her a lesson. Naruto got an idea and had his mischievous pranking grin on his face. He stabbed his sword into the ground and in the blink of the eye he used his Rinnegan to create a chair behind Karasuba, then sat in it, pulling her onto his lap. He flipped her so she was on her belly on his lap and spanked her 12 times. Bad Karasuba. Be nice to your sisters or I won't kiss you for 3 days. He said softly. His flock was either shocked at his display or trying to keep from giggling. Mia was laughing behind her kimono sleeve. Uzume was on the floor laughing with Hibiki. Ikki had her mouth agape the same as Hikari. And Yahan was pouting because she wanted Master to spank her bum. Karasuba was shaking as she stayed on Naruto's lap. He stood and helped her to her feet. All thoughts of killing the other Sekirei vanished after Naruto took her over his knee. The thoughts of going through with that crazy Uchiha's plans vanished as well. Naruto noticed the seal on the back of her neck and destroyed it with his sage chakra. He yawned and hugged the woman's arm. If you want me to, I can wing you, he said softly. Karasuba smiled and leaned down, puckering her lips. Wing me now before I rip your clothes off and fuck you right here, she said with a hint of lust in her voice. Naruto grinned and kissed her as ghostly gray wings burst from her back. This is the pledge of my blade, exterminate the sworn enemy of my Ashikabi. Forevermore, she said as Naruto smiled up at her. These are your sisters. Be kind or I will spank you. Also, no kisses for weak. The former dog of MBI pouted at her Ashikabi before nodding and kneeling in front of the other. I'm sorry for my actions against any of you. Please be good to me, she said softly as Naruto patted her head. The shinobi jumped off the roof, landing on one foot as he said, we need to talk about Satsuki Uchiha. The usual warmth he had in him gone, replaced with cold indifference. What's she planning? He said, looking up to Karasuba, who somersaults in the air, landing beside him. Aside from her wanting me to kill all of your Sekirei, she wants you back. Not that I can kill them anymore. By the time I killed the 4 weaklings I'd be exhausted and Mia and the Shadow Imp would be too much for me. I'm sure you wouldn't be happy either, Master. Naruto sighed and looked up at the sky. Well, that's not happening. He held his hand over the scar on his chest where she'd stabbed him. If it weren't for his dextrocardia he'd have died. Well, I guess I have to fight in this game and win it. Then I can send her back to the wasteland she turned our world into. Naruto sighed as he was sitting at the dinner table after expanding the table and the room with seals. On one side he had Yahan snuggling into his prosthetic arm protectively, while his newest Sekirei Karasuba had the shinobi in her lap, her arms wrapped around him with his head pressing into her chest. Can I please sit on my own? A full chorus of no was heard from the dining room and the kitchen. Mia, Ikki, and the twins were cooking in the kitchen with Matsu, Uzume, Yahan, and Karasuba sitting with Naruto at the table. Why can't I cook? He asked as Karasuba kissed his head and snuggled him. Your newest bird needs your complete attention, my lovely little Ashikabi, Karasuba said as she gently tickled his side, which made him laugh, that in turn brought smiles to all of the girls' faces. Naruto grinned as he used his free hand to make a shadow clone and swapped with it before Karasuba grabbed him and held him again in her lap, his clone being cuddled by Uzume and Yahan. You know I do have work to do, right? He said, to which Karasuba responded by playing with his hair, which got a strange response. Did Naruto just? Matsu asked with a big perverse grin on her face. Oh my, he did, Uzume said with a happy smile on her face. Mia and the three in the kitchen came out to see the ruckus to notice. He purred. They all shouted. Mia grinned mischievously as she went and grabbed the food along with the twins and Ikki. She sat beside Karasuba at the head of the table and took Naruto from her. You go ahead and eat, I'll make sure he doesn't get away. Naruto whined and got a bit of rice in his mouth from Mia. He swallowed and licked his lips and was about to speak before Mia pet his head with one hand and he began to purr as she went between feeding herself and Naruto. The small shinobi grinned as he'd noticed Yahan and Uzume had released his shadow clone who used the substitution jutsu. Okay, while I enjoy the affection, I do like my freedom, he said from his spot where he stood on the ceiling to keep from being grabbed again. His flock of Sekirei smiled up at him as he spoke and nodded. His clone dispersed and he sat down between Mia and Karasuba. As they finished eating, Naruto tensed up and stood. Found another one in a park nearby. I'll be back in a bit, Mia-chan. It seems we might need to add more space to the inn soon. He chuckled as he put his favorite flannel shirt on before putting on his favorite long hoodie that was like a duster with a hood. He hopped onto the floor and said, set some food aside for our new friend. We'll need to figure out space soon. I could add space seals. He spaced out before disappearing in a flurry of leaves. He left the house roof hopping until he got to the park. There he found a woman nude aside from a bloody lab coat. He took his hoodie off and unbuttoned his flannel shirt. He walked up to the girl and looked into her eyes. I may not know what happened, but you look like you need warm meal and a place to stay, he said softly as she looked into his eyes. Her eyes widened as she saw the loneliness and unbridled sadness deep in his soul. She hugged herself to him and he heard her talk in a soft and airy voice. I am broken, alone and unwanted. Like you are. Naruto held her up and saw the Sekirei crest on her head. He put a finger to it and ate his head. It took everything in the woman's heart not to glomp Naruto, who looked so adorable. He'd been looking into the Sekirei crests since he'd first winged Yahan and noticed they were simple seals he could repair and fix. He'd made sure they wouldn't be able to be shut down if they were defeated. He channeled chakra into his finger and into her mark, destroying the mark on her forehead. There we go. You're not broken anymore. Nobody can ever take your choice from you again, he said as he stood up and held his hand out to her. She then launched herself onto him, hugging him tight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She kept repeating it over and over again, crying as she held the small shinobi. Excuse me, but I believe you have what belongs to me, a new voice said, and the girl let go of Naruto to look up at the newcomer. Naruto stood back up and cracked his neck at the sight of a young man in a white suit jacket and sandy blonde hair. Next to him was a tall silver-haired man wearing black pants and a white long-sleeved shirt with a leather band going across his chest and an X. In his left hand he held a guardless katana. Naruto cracked his knuckles and said, I'm sorry, but everything here belongs to me. Except for the young lady. She's her own person. But I do have something for your Sekirei. The Sekirei comment shocked the boy and his companion. And what do you have for me, Chibi-san? Naruto's eye twitched as he put his jacket on the girl wearing nothing but a mesh long-sleeved shirt. He tapped the seal over his heart and Fox Soul popped into his right hand. An ass-kicking silver-haired bag. He disappeared and it took all of Matsu's instincts to draw his blade and block the strike that would have decapitated him. The boy gasped as he couldn't keep up with the strikes. It was like a blur to him. But the girl could. Her eyes were on Naruto as he slashed and sliced at Matsu, deliberately only slicing and cutting at his clothes. Never underestimate your opponent, Naruto said before axe-kicking Matsu into a wall, leaving an indent. Naruto sealed his sword and picked the girl up and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. He stopped on a roof and set her down gently. Sorry about that. I don't like bullies like them. I forgot to introduce myself as well. I'm Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki. What's your name? He said as she stood and looked down at him slightly. Ah, Akitsu master. Naruto blushed when she called him master but realized she hadn't winged herself to him. Did you want me to wing you then, Akitsu? He asked softly, to which she nodded her head and leaned down, kissing him gently on the lips as icy wings spread from her back. This is the ice of my pledge. Shatter the misfortunes of my Ashikabi. she said sweetly before picking up her ashikabi and snuggling him to her. "Ah, master, which way is home?" she said, and Naruto said, "Just set me down and I'll show you." She shook her head and said, "Ah, no. Master should never have to walk again." She cuddled him, kissing him on the forehead as she headed towards the north where the inn was. They got back and everyone was at the table drinking tea. Naruto got claps and laughter at being carried in by his newest Sekirei. When Mia saw them, she went and got a plate of food for her. Karasuba pouted about not getting to carry him. Akitsu sat down and set him beside her, an iron grip on him, holding him to her left side as she ate with one hand. Matsu was wide-eyed as she said, "How did you wing her?" "She's number 7, the one that was prematurely winged by an adjuster who didn't know what they were doing." "How did you fix her, Naruto-tan?" Naruto grinned and said, "Shinobi secret." He pulled out his seal brush and ink bottle and had Akitsu let him go so he could write up the protection seal for Karasuba and Akitsu before he applied them. "Oh master, was it your seal work then?" Yahan said from behind Naruto where she'd come out of his shadow. "Yup, shinobi secrets, he. Hibiki and Matsu both pounded on his head in frustration and indignation. "Come on Naruto-kun, tell us." Hibiki whined. "Yan Naru-tan teal USSSS. Matsu added, whining even more. The Naruto they were messing with burst into smoke and the real Naruto was on the ceiling. "Ya gotta get up pretty early to pull one on a shinobi," he said as he dropped down and said, "Kara-chan, please part your hair." Karasuba did as he asked, but before he could she said, "I want to know what you're doing to my crest first." Naruto grinned and sat down beside her and said, "Well, to put it simply, your Sekirei crests are very simple seals. I can modify them how I want to. The seals I made when I winged each of you makes it so you can't be terminated in this game and you can use the full power of your Norito if needed." This made the Sekirei gasp as he could modify their adjustments to their power if he wanted to. "So this means I can't be taken from you?" Karasuba asked, to which Naruto nodded. "This game that moron made is stupid. As Mia told me, your being's made to love. You shouldn't be put through this because some asshat has a god complex. I'll end this game and separate his head from his shoulder myself." The last part made Karasuba clench her thighs together as she bit her lip. "Go ahead then, Naru-kun," she said, parted her hair to the side, letting him view the back of his neck and see her crest. He placed the seal he was making over her crest and said, "Fuin." The ink came off of the paper and onto Karasuba's crest. Matsu tilted her head and said, "So does that mean you can make it so we can be our best selves?" Naruto nodded his head as picked up the rest. Akitsu moved her hair for him, letting him do the same he did to Karasuba. "The only one that doesn't need it is Mia. When I winged her she gained her full power. Maybe because she's the pillar or because of our strong bond. Could have been Mononoke and Kaguya's interference." This confused the rest of his Sekirei aside from Matsu and Uzume. "Who are Mononoke and Kaguya?" Hikari asked, a bit confused. Naruto grinned and said, "Let's go to the living room then and I can tell you all a story. I told you about where I came from and the tailed beasts. Except for Akitsu and Karasuba. I'm sure Karasuba was told something by Uchiha Mainu." Karasuba nodded and said, "She gave me a brief viewpoint of your world and that you were lovers torn apart by war. I didn't really believe the whole lovers thing. Especially after I've gotten to know you better. She doesn't seem to be your type." Naruto responded, "You mean Psycho Stalker?" "Yeah, no. She was the second stalker I'd had. The first one was a girl I'd saved when I was young. I'd been training to be a shinobi since I was small. I was hiding one night from a mob. I'll tell you more about that later. I saw a man that was the ambassador from another shinobi village called the Village, hidden in the clouds carrying a wriggling sack. I used my family's secret technique, chakra chains, to lock him down before I knocked him out and opened the sack to find a girl. She was the heiress to the Hyuga clan of my village. After that she followed me everywhere. She saw me be abused, hurt and nearly killed but did nothing to help me at all. I never paid her any mind because of that. When I found someone that truly loved and cared for me, she didn't like that and tried to kill her then me. In the shinobi world, attacking a fellow shinobi was considered treason. So she was to be sentenced to life in prison. But because of her clan's notoriety in the village, she got off with a lighter sentence, although she lost her title as heiress and had to have a seal placed on her by her clan to keep her in check. Not that they could, but I digress. I never really had a type back home in my world. But the ones I did pick could kick my ass if I got out of line. He blushed and scratched the back of his head as all of his Sekirei grinned at him devilishly. Except for Matsu. In my case I'm smarter than you, Naruto-tan, she said with a big grin. Naruto rolled his eyes and said, "You do know I have 2 doctorates in psychology and physics." Matsu nodded and said, "Yes, I did know that. You also have a degree from the Culinary Institute of America, and an art history degree. For someone who is only 22, you're quite accomplished. Graduated from high school at 15, your culinary degree by 16, by 18 your other degree and your doctorates. Then you just decided to run bars and other dives." Naruto sighed and said, "I did all that to keep my mind off of my depression. After I finished, cooking was the only thing that kept me from going over the edge. That's when I started painting, it really helped me a lot." Yahan nodded as she pointed to the wall behind him. "Yeah, Master is an amazing artist. He made that painting, and you should see his sketchbooks. I set them on his bookshelves for him and saw how pretty they were." Naruto looked back and saw that she did put his new painting he'd made the day before on the wall. His blush was as red as his hair. "I wish you would have asked first before putting up my paintings," he said softly before Mia got an idea. "You should paint all of us together. Like a family portrait," she said happily as she pulled Naruto to her and kissed his forehead. "Please, my beloved?" she asked as she nuzzled him close and pressed his head into her chest. Naruto groaned and said, "Okay, I'll do it, but please stop." She stopped and he jumped back onto the ceiling. "I almost died, I saw a white light, I saw Anko," he said, shivering a little bit as he kept himself out of reach of his flock of pouting Sekirei. "If you all calm down, I'll give you each a blood clone to sleep with tonight. Unlike my shadow clones which break after either losing chakra or being hit hard enough, my blood clones are a bit more stable." The girls all gasped in happiness as Naruto bit his finger and let blood flow from his wound before going through a flurry of hand signs and 4 Narutos appeared. Naruto huffed a bit and said, "Sorry, I guess I used too much chakra fighting that guy with the sword and his ashikabi." He then explained chakra and his world and how he got here. Karasuba grinned like a predator at the thought of Naruto's world and the strong opponents that were there. "Each of you can pair up and take a clone. Akitsu will be with me tonight. Though we can cycle through Yahan and Mia, Uzume and Matsu, the twins, and finally Ikki and Karasuba," he said softly as he hopped down and got mobbed by his Sekirei, who kissed him and hugged him tightly. "You're the best, Naruto-kun," they said together before letting him go. The girls all went to bathe except for Mia and Naruto, who cleaned up after dinner. Naruto yawned a little before being picked up by Mia after they finished cleaning. "I know you don't like being carried, but you're my beloved ashikabi and I want to take care of you. Let's go see if I have anything for Akitsu to wear," she said as Naruto replied, "Oh, I told her she could wear one of my old shirts from my old life." He tapped his arm and a big black shirt that would be a dress now on Naruto appeared. It had the Uzumaki clan crest on it. Mia noticed and said, "Is that red spiral important?" Naruto nodded as he set it in Akitsu's bin by the bath before they went upstairs. "That's my clan symbol. If you want you can all add it to your outfits. You are my wives, right?" he said, to which Mia nodded her head as they arrived in her room. She undressed Naruto and said, "I bought you this outfit for bed and I think you'll look so cute in it." She then undid his prosthetic and put on a buttoned pajama top with wolves and birds on it. She cut the sleeve on the left side and smiled before putting his pants on. "There we go. What do you think?" Naruto looked in her mirror and smiled. The wolf and the birds reminded him of himself and his flock and he did love it. "I love it. Thank you so much, Miyakoi," he said, hugging her as he jumped up and kissed her as her wings appeared. "Tomorrow I'll take Akitsu shopping for new clothes. She'll just have to borrow something from Uzume till we can get her clothes." All of his clones went to different rooms while he went to his own room. He got the bed ready and lay down as Akitsu came in and smiled. She showed off in Naruto's old shirt and said, "Ah, thank you, master. It smells like you." She got down on the futon and pulled him close to her and smelled his hair. "Ah, wonderful," she said happily as she closed her eyes and fell asleep. Naruto yawned and went to bed. The next time he opened his eyes he saw himself on 3 different paths. One was gray and had dead trees with crows on it. The second was a pink path with ribbons running down it. Then the third was purple with knives littering the ground. Naruto's head tilted as he made his signature hand sign and 2 clones appeared. One took the purple path, the other took the gray path. Naruto went down the middle path and saw a pink-haired girl with a big black bow wrapped around her waist as she wore a black kimono top missing a sleeve. She also wore red fingerless gloves. From what Naruto could tell, she was very strong. "Hello? Can you hear me?" he asked as she turned and he saw those beautiful pink eyes. "Ashikabi-sama," she shouted happily. "I'll find you, my love. I promise," she said with a smile as the dream ended. Naruto walked down the path lined by dead trees as the crows flew off. The crows reminded Naruto of Itachi, and the long black-haired Uchiha appeared next to him. "Hello, Naruto-kun," Itachi said with a smile as he poked the redhead's forehead. "You look better with red hair. But the outfit is interesting," the lone good Uchiha said as Naruto sighed. "So this does seem interesting, but it's weird to remember my life when I'm dead and a part of your subconscious." Naruto shrugged and said, "It could be about the Sharingan you gave me. I know it was Shisui's, but your crow had your memories when it went into my eye." The two walked the path and talked until Itachi faded away. Naruto smiled, glad to see his old friend again. He then dodged as a clawed hands clattered by him. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Ashikabi-sama," a beautiful spiky silver-haired woman said. She wore bandages all over her body and a tattered black kimono covering her slender body. "It's okay, I'm Naruto by the way," he said with a smile as she set her claws down and went to hug him. "I'm Haihane Master. Please help me find you," she said as his clone dispersed. The third clone walked down the knife-strewn path until he found a girl scrambling around to clean up her knives. "Oh, this is bad. I hope Ashikabi-sama never sees my messiness." Naruto smiled and picked up the knives and said, "I don't think I'd ever be mad about something like this, my wagtail." She turned, dropping her knives as she screamed, "Ashikabi-sama," she jumped and hugged him. "I'll come find you soon, Ashikabi-sama," she said happily, snuggling into him before he woke up. As Naruto woke up, he was in a precarious position. Akitsu was holding him close and somehow her shirt came off in her sleep and his face was pressed against her naked ass. He did enjoy the fact that she was very cool and it felt very nice. She whimpered as he moved his head and pulled him closer. "It's time to wake up, Akitsu-chan," he said as she opened one eye and said, "Ah, 5 more minutes, Naru-sama." He sighed and said, "Well, can I please get up? I have to start my exercises." She let him go, saying, "Ah, shadow clone," she said sleepily as Naruto made a clone for her which she cuddled. Naruto yawned as he stretched a little as he changed into a pair of workout shorts and a muscle shirt and his favorite running shoes. He left his room and went to the yard and started his exercises before he made a shadow clone to fight against. As he did, his Sekirei came to watch him. Ikki grinned and attacked him, which made him smile as his clone disappeared and he blocked her strikes before another sword went to swipe him and he blocked it with his prosthetic. "Good morning, Kara-chan," he said happily as he used his foot to swipe Ikki onto her butt as he went and fought against Karasuba and said, "There's something special you don't know about Fox Soul." He pulled the trigger on his blade and a bullet of chakra blasted into her blade before she jumped back to keep the attack from hitting her. She grinned and jumped up, slashing downwards as Ikki went for a side slash. Naruto dropped down and kicked both of his Sekirei before flipping into the air. He was about to end it with a Rasengan to each of them, but he was grabbed by Mia. "Time for your bath, beloved," she said with a smile. Karasuba and Ikki whined before realizing they were sweaty and needed a bath too. Naruto grumbled and said, "Matsu, come with so I can talk to you." The redhead giggled and said, "Naruto-tan wants an orgy. How kink," she was cut off as a ladle smacked her over the head. "Stop trying to corrupt Naruto-koi, you pervert," Mia said as the 5 walked into the kitchen. "Uzume and Yahan are in charge of making breakfast this morning. Uzume Akitsu will need to borrow an outfit from you so I can take her shopping later," Naruto said before he was brought into the bath. Mia stripped him and the girls did too. Mia cleaned him lovingly, not letting him wash it himself. "Okay, Matsu. So I had a dream with 3 different Sekirei down 3 different paths. I made 2 shadow clones and they each went down the other 2 paths. The Sekirei I met were interesting to say the least. One was clumsy and had silver hair and clawed gauntlets, her robes were tattered and she was covered in bandages. She said her name was Karasuba interrupted him. Haihane, right? She was picked by me to be on the 3rd iteration of the discipline squad for the game. I guess they didn't have that gay guy Nato wing her or Benaheim." Naruto then asked, Does this Benaheim happen to have pink hair? Karasuba nodded her head and said, yeah, she's a whiny thing too. Always upset she's not stacked like most Sekirei. Naruto nodded his said, yeah, but she has great legs and a nice butt. He grinned as he and Mia went into the tub while Ikki and Karasuba finished washing off. Who was the last one, Naruto? Matsu asked him with a tablet in her hand. The last one had purple hair and she was a bit clumsy too. She had lots of throwing knives. I mean, I have a lot of shuriken and kunai, but she has a ton of knives. He said as he was pulled from Mia's lap to Ikki's, who snuggled the redhead to her chest. Naruto sighed and said, when I win Benaheim, let's be caring about her insecurities. The others nodded except for Karasuba, who snorted and rolled her eyes. She pisses me off, I'm calling her washboard. Naruto flicked her forehead and the gray-haired Sekirei growled at him with a grin. Matsu giggled perversely as Naruto asked, when you get a chance, can you get me as much information on those three as possible and see if we can get locations on them? Matsu nodded and left the bath as Naruto got out. I'll go get dressed and take a kitsu shopping, he said before Mia could take him and dress him herself. He stretched and put his prosthetic in before getting dressed in a gray shirt with the Uzumaki crest and black vest with the red bat symbol on the back. He finished putting his pants and boots on and grabbed a sketchbook and his messenger bag with his pencils and charcoals in it. Akitsu, let's get going, he said, waiting by the door for the ice Sekirei. Naruto and Akitsu were walking down the street. Well, Akitsu was walking and carrying Naruto bridal style and Naruto was blushing red. The short redhead was using the opportunity to enter sage mode in case he could sense one of his future Sekirei. While doing so, he saw a busty brunette dressed like a shrine maiden dragging a cute short black-haired girl behind her as they were being chased by a couple of Sekirei wielding various weapons. Naruto hopped out of Akitsu's arms and had a shadow clone take their shopping bags as they chased after the group. Naruto took a few kunai from his seals and threw them at the feet of the Sekirei chasing the girls and watched them explode, launching them into the air. Akitsu now. Akitsu shot a mist of ice at them, coating them all in a block of ice. Naruto walked up to the block and closed his eyes to feel and could see they both belonged to an Ishikabi with a foul aura. He tapped their Sekirei crests with a burst of chakra and said, there, now you can find your true Ishikabi now that you aren't forcibly waned. He smiled and walked towards the girls and said, hey, are you two okay? The brunette smiled at Naruto and said, Musubi is okay, thank you for saving Yukari-chan and Musubi. The other girl was crouched down, breathing hard as she stood and looked at her savior and turned completely red at the sight of the adorable Bishonen standing in front of her and her new friend Musubi. Naruto just smiled as Akitsu stood behind him protectively and said, it's a pleasure to meet both of you. My name is Naruto Uzumaki and this is one of my Sekirei, Akitsu. Musubi clapped her hands happily, her large assets bouncing as she moved. Yukari's eyes almost popped out of their head and she resisted the urge to grab them again like she did when they met. She didn't want the beautiful boy in front of her to think she was a pervert. Hi Naruto and Akitsu. Musubi is Musubi, she said ecstatically as she shook their hands. She then whimpered and said, I feel funny around you Naruto like I do with Yukari-chan. Naruto looked up at Akitsu and said, is it normal for a Sekirei to react to two different Ishikabi? Akitsu tilted her head and shrugged. Ah, I think Matsu may know. Naruto just shrugged and said to Musubi, well, I think you may be reacting to me and Yukari at the same time. A strong reaction from me is normal due to the amount of Sekirei I have. It could be that you're reacting to her because she may be a very powerful Ishikabi herself. Musubi turned to Yukari, who was holding back a nosebleed. Wait, so you have a harem of beautiful busty women and you want to share with me? She said as she looked like she was about to faint. Naruto giggled and said, well, kind of, I guess. We'd be ko-ishikabi of Musubi and I know my Sekirei would welcome you. But let's go back to the inn and get everything situated. He helped Yukari up and said, this will be a bit faster than just walking. Akitsu, Musubi, please grab my shoulders. The two grabbed his shoulders as he hugged Yukari to him and disappeared in a flash and reappeared at the inn. Everyone, I made new friends. Naruto was glad he'd had left some clones to put up seals to make the inn bigger and add more rooms for their growing family. Mia was out front sweeping when Naruto appeared with two new companions. Oh, you found more Sekirei that you weren't dreaming of? That's fantastic. Your clones just finished making the house bigger and added more rooms. Thank you for being such a good ashikabi, she said, kissing his forehead. He smiled and hugged Mia before calling out, Matsu, do you want a kiss? Matsu appeared faster than Naruto's Hirishin and picked up her red-headed master and kissed him deeply on the lips before he tickled her to release him. Her wings flashed outwards, making Naruto smile. She giggled and he dropped to the floor. He patted her head before she stood up and said, Matsu, this is Musubi. She's a Sekirei that's reacting to Yukari here and myself. Is it possible for a Sekirei to react strongly to two ashikabi at the same time? Matsu scratched her head and pulled her tablet from her cleavage and began to type. Mia walked up and said, not that I've heard of, but if you both kiss Musubi at the same time you both may become her ashikabi, she said as Matsu nodded her head, slipping her tablet back between her s. Naruto tilted his head and said, how'd you do that? Matsu smirked and said, trade secret, but if you tell me a shinobi secret I may tell you. Naruto just smiled back and whispered in her ear. Steam came out of Matsu's ears, her face was red and blood began to leak from her nose. Show me, she shouted, and Naruto smirked and whispered to Mia, who said, I think Karasuba would do well as the recipient of that. Naruto smirked and the group walked out to the backyard. Karasuba was training Ikki and his other Sekirei in how to fight a single-digit Sekirei as powerful as she was. Naruto stripped out of his jacket and shirt, stretched and flexed. Yukari gasped as she hadn't noticed Naruto was missing an arm as he was wearing long sleeves and gloves. He stretched and Yukari's face turned red and her nose bled. Matsu whispered to her, he's well endowed too. She giggled watching the girl have steam come out of her ears. Karasuba noticed the newcomers and smiled at the sight of her ashikabi and Musubi. Musubi, it's so very good to see you. Musubi jumped up and down in glee and charged Karasuba, giving her a hug. Karasuba hugged her back and smiled before kissing her ashikabi on the lips, her wings emerging. The two talked for a moment before Naruto said, Matsu bet me $20 American saying I couldn't beat you in a one-on-one fight without my weapons. Karasuba grinned viciously and stretched as she held her sword in the ready position. Naruto smiled before he ran at her, making a shadow clone before it disappeared. Naruto ducked under her strike and jabbed at the joint under her knee, sending chakra through it, making her drop down to one knee. Naruto grinned as he disappeared in smoke, revealing it was a clone. The real Naruto appeared behind Karasuba, holding his middle and index fingers together, his other fingers linked together as he poked Karasuba in the ass and said, Konoha's secret technique. 1,000 years of death. As he did, he sent chakra through his fingers into her erogenous zones. Karasuba moaned and whined out as she shot out in the air and landed in a moaning unconscious heap with a smile on her face. Ikki and Uzume were pounding their fists against the ground laughing while the twins had major blushes on their faces. Yahan was poking Karasuba with her foot while the others were chuckling at it, while Yukari had stars in her eyes. Musubi also had stars in her eyes, but for different reasons. Naruto-kun is small but so strong. Naruto stretched out and put his shirt back on. Yukari, come over here with Musubi and I. Yukari walked up to them and Naruto said, Musubi, I'm going to kiss Yukari. When we kiss I want you to lean in and kiss us both at the same time. Can you do that? Musubi nodded and said with a happy smile. Yes, Musubi can do it. Naruto's eyes changed to his Sharingan and he made a small wooden stool with the Mokuton. He leaned over to Yukari and held her cheeks in his hands as he gently pressed his lips against hers. He felt Yukari wrap her arms around him before Musubi giggled and kissed them both, and Musubi's wings appeared as she said, These are the fists of my pledge. Crush the catastrophe before my ashikabi. Naruto wrapped his arms around them both and kissed them each on the cheek. He then took his phone out and took a picture of the back of their necks and showed Yukari. Seems like you may have a tiny bit of Sekirei blood in you. This crest on the back of your neck merged with my chakra, which I pushed into both of you during the kiss. You may be able to harness it to a degree, he said, scratching his chin as they went inside. Yukari told them she was going to her apartment she was going to rent, but Mia told her to cancel it and she'd live here. Naruto made a few shadow clones and hanged them so they could help Yukari bring her things home. There, now I'm gonna go find the ones I dreamed of, he said softly as Karasuba stood up shakily before glaring at Naruto. Karasuba picked him up as Naruto said, Matsu asked me to do it and Mia-chan said that it was okay. Karasuba kissed him gently, her wings sprouting from her back before shoving her tongue down his throat. You owe me 3 more orgasms better than that one you gave me. She set him down and patted his head. Go find my little minions, love, and I don't care about order anymore, you're sleeping with me tonight. Naruto nodded and tapped his chin as he looked at his girls and said. Okay, Yahanyu and a few clones can teleport around looking for the girls in the west. The clones can just dispel and let me know if you find them. Hibiki and Hikari, you two check the south. Ikki and Musubi, please check the east. Uzume, you're with me. Karasuba, I'll give you 2 clones to look around here in the north. I'll head to the center of the city with Uzume. Uzume grinned and said, since you need to be in sage mode, can I push you in a stroller or wheelchair? Naruto rolled his eyes and Mia grinned happily and picked him up as he was placed in the seat of a stroller-like wheelchair. She pinched his cheek lovingly before giving him a forehead kiss as Uzume pushed him out of the yard and to the train headed to the center of the city. Naruto closed his eyes and gathered nature chakra before opening them again. He was glad he left a few back home to gather chakra. Though the tree in the corner of the backyard seemed to interfere with his ability to gather nature chakra. He felt the bright pink aura close to MBI Tower. Benasubasa is near MBI Tower. I think I should put a henge on us and suppress my chakra. Especially since we don't know if Uchiha Mainu is there. If she is, she'll recognize my chakra signature. Naruto pulled a piece of paper from his messenger bag in his lap. He put the paper on his arm and it merged with his skin. He put another on Uzume's belly as Uzume said, how do we get her attention, Narukoi? Naruto smiled and said, she's leaving the building right now and heading towards the north. Once we get at least a few blocks from here, I'll let her know I'm here. He made a few shadow clones that immediately turned into butterflies. They walked for a bit before they came upon a park where Benasubasa had found one of the Naruto clones hanged as a butterfly and wondered why she loved it so much. Naruto dispelled his butterfly clones and said to Uzume, please get me out of this thing. Benasubasa turned and said, oh, I think you look adorable in it, Ashikabi-sama. Naruto blushed as he undid the straps and stood up. With the pink-haired Sekirei, he was only a few inches shorter than her. Like he'd said this morning while she was lacking in the chest department, she had amazing legs and a fantastic ass. He leaned up and said, I'm very glad to meet you, Benny-chan. You're even more beautiful than in my dreams, Hanabi-chan. He said, giving her the nickname Firecracker for her fiery personality Karasuba told him about. Benasubasa smiled and leaned down, capturing her beloved Ashikabi's lips as her beautiful crimson ribbon-like wings burst from her. Palm of my pledge, crush the stones torturing my Ashikabi, now and forevermore. She said softly as she held her new Ashikabi to her and nuzzled him into her small chest. Just so you know, Benny-chan, I have quite a flock of birds already. Including number 4, number 7, number 2, and number 1. Benasubasa gaped as she heard that not only was her Ashikabi powerful enough to have a large flock, he had winged her former superior Karasuba and the freaking Sekirei pillar. Naruto looked into her eyes and said, do you know where I can find Haihane? She nodded and pulled a smartphone from her bra. Yeah, I can call her if the clumsy Reaper hasn't broken her phone yet. You know, after hearing that Karasuba was winged, Manaka the idiot dissolved the disciplinary squad and that black-haired bitch would be the disciplinary squad with her 2 combat Sekirei. Naruto cringed and said, call her please, but hand me the phone. She did as he asked and Haihane answered. Benasubasa said she had a surprise and Naruto took the phone. Come to the park, my sweet ashen bird. He said softly, and he could hear a whimper and moan on the other end before he heard a dial tone. He gave Benny-chan back her phone and Uzume picked Naruto up and set him on a bench with Benasubasa while she went to get drinks and snacks from a vending machine. She knew Naruto hadn't had lunch due to finding Musubi and Yukari, so she wanted to get him something to snack on. 20 minutes passed and Naruto could hear metal gauntlets grinding against pavement, and he saw Haihane trip and roll right to his feet at the bench. Hi Naruto-sama, she said sheepishly as the redhead hopped off the bench and helped her up. Hello my precious Reaper. Here, let's make it easier to carry these. He said, kissing her and letting a bit of his chakra leak into her like he did with all of his Sekirei. She kissed him back feverishly. Her ashen gray wings shaped like the blades of her gauntlets emerged from her back before saying, Wire claws of my pledge tear apart the guards imprisoning my Ashikabi forevermore. Naruto giggled and grabbed one of the seal brushes and ink pots from his bag and took hold of her wrist, making a seal on first on the right, then the left. He placed her gauntlets on them and they disappeared. Haihane was amazed, as was Benasubasa. Naruto smiled and patted her hands as they walked down the street back to the inn. He then winced and said, "Karasuba found her. I'll meet you all at home." He then disappeared in a flash of light. That's so cool. He'd look super badass like an anime protagonist if he wasn't such a little cutie. Haihane said with a sweet smile which made Uzume laugh. Oh my goddess, yes, you're right. He tries to act like such a badass but he's just too cute. Benasubasa giggled and nodded as they headed back home. Oh, if you love anime you should see the seal Naruto is making for me. It's a ring that when I channel my chakra, I think he called it, swaps out my street clothes for my battle outfit. He made it so there's flashes of light and sparkles like a magical girl transformation. The girls laughed before they headed towards the inn. Naruto appeared at Karatsuba's left side which made her flinch. Shit love, don't do that, she said softly, which made Naruto giggle. Laying on the ground in front of them bruised and huffing was Natsu. I didn't tell you to rough the poor thing up. Natsu-chan, are you okay? He said softly as he poked Karasuba before helping his potential Sekirei up and making a few clones to pick up her scattered knives. Naruto tapped his wrist and out of a seal popped a kunai knife which he handed to Natsu. Here you go my sweet bird. A present from me to you. Natsu looked at the knife, noticing how beautiful and intricate the work on it was. It was a tri-pronged kunai knife with kanji written on the handle. As she looked at Naruto, a voice said, "Sorry to say you're talking to my property." Naruto turned to see a man with a Sekirei in a purple and yellow unitard, a red-haired Sekirei dressed like Bruce Lee, a short purple-haired Sekirei in a schoolgirl's uniform, and a Sekirei with a naginata on her back and chains being held by a Sekirei with scissor-like scythe blades in one of her hands. There were several other Sekirei. Naruto scowled and said, "What's with you assholes here saying a woman belongs to you? I'm guessing those Sekirei aren't reacting to you. 3 things are going to happen. First thing is your Sekirei is going to release those girls. Second, you're going to leave, and third, I get to go home and eat dinner. Or if you're going to be there's 3 things. 1, I kiss my Sekirei there with the big sword and tell her she can go wild. Second, I beat the ever-living shit out of you until you're half dead and bleeding out. Third, I free these girls and we go home. So which is it going to be?" The man laughed and said, "Little boy playing in an adult's game. You really think you can do anything to me? You're a child and I am Izumi Higa, heir to the Izumi Medical Group. I can make your life a living hell, kid. Here's what's gonna happen. Kaiha is going to terminate your Sekirei and I'm going to take the unwinged one. Then you're going to get beaten up and left here bleeding." Naruto chuckled and stretched a bit before Karasuba leaned down from her spot behind him, tilted his chin up and kissed him. Option 2 it is. This is the pledge of my blade. Exterminate the sworn enemy of my Ashikabi. She then grinned devilishly as Naruto said, "Terminate, don't kill. Oh, and make sure not to hurt the innocent birds." She nodded and launched forward, attacking Higa's Sekirei. Naruto used a shunshin to appear behind Higa as he punched him in the face hard, breaking his nose and making an arc of blood spurt as he flew back, hitting a wall as Naruto cracked his knuckles. "My name is Naruto and I am 23 years old, you son of a bitch." He kicked the man in the ribs hard as he said, "This is for forcing yourself on innocent birds." He picked Higa up and punched him in the chest. "This is for trying to take more innocent birds." He then kept punching Higa until he was pulled away. It wasn't Natsu or Karasuba who pulled him back. It was the cute schoolgirl. "It's okay, Naruto-sama. He won't hurt us anymore. Right?" She turned to look at the other birds that they'd freed, who nodded their heads. Natsu was now rubbing Naruto's back with a proud smile on her face. Her Ashikabi loved her enough to protect her even though it was her job to protect him. She kissed his head before saying breathlessly, "Naruto-sama, please wing me, I need you." Naruto turned and pulled her lips to him and kissed her lovingly as he used his hand to play with her hair. Beautiful purple wings launched from her back in the shape of knives. "By the flying knives of my contract, my Ashikabi's enemies will be sliced to shreds, forever." Naruto hugged her close before saying, "Okay, it's time to go back to Maison Izumo. You 4 are welcome to stay until you find your Ashikabi. Oh, and I warn you, I guess you can say girlfriend Yukari is an ashikabi and she likes to squeeze tits. So just be aware. He then turned to Karasuba who just finished terminating Higa's Sekirei. Let's get out of her little love. MBI will be here to pick up the terminated Sekirei soon. Naruto nodded and whined as Karasuba picked him up and jumped onto the roof, the group of 5 following behind her as they headed back north. Naruto took his phone out and said, "On our way home now. We'll need 5 more spaces at the table. I sent a clone back a little while ago, have him adjust the seals Matsu-chan." Matsu replied, "Hi Naruto-tan, how many rooms will you need to add?" Naruto responded, 4 for now, I rescued 4 birds and I'm bringing them home." Matsu hung up before the group landed at Maison Izumo. Naruto stretched out after jumping from Karasuba's arms to the ground and said to his new Sekirei and their guests, "Welcome to Maison Izumo. There's a few rules that I'll share with you that the landlady, my second Sekirei Mia, will want you to abide by. No fighting inside the inn. Sparring out in the yard is fine but no fighting. Also no lewdness out in the public areas. Now I'm sure you're hungry and tired, so let's go eat." The group of 8 made it into the dining room to see what was once a small dining area was now like something out of a mansion or something. A large round table sat in the middle of the room with chairs now. Mia wanted a traditional Japanese table and cushions, but she knew with the large family they'd need chairs and space. Naruto was glomped and snuggled into a soft pair of S and he recognized the school tie and said, "Did you really miss me, Yukari-chan?" She nodded and nuzzled their cheeks together. "Yes I did, Naruto-kun. But could you tell the scary landlady not to hit me again with her ladle? Oh, and the Hania mask is so scary." He smiled and said, "Whose tits did you grope?" Yukari blushed and whispered softly before Naruto spanked her ass and said, "Louder for the whole class, Yukari-chan." She blushed and said, It was Uzume's. She grabbed mine and we kinda got out of hand." Naruto felt the temperature drop a bit as he heard Mia. "You wouldn't be trying to get out of your punishment by begging Naruto to stop me, would you, Yukari-chan?" She was holding one of her infamous ladles and behind her was her Hania mask, but it was bleeding from its mouth and eyes and had a sword between its teeth. Naruto's eyes sparkled and he took pictures of it as he moved quickly around it while saying, "Mia Koi, this is so cool. Could you teach me how to make one of these? Please, 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 please." The Hania disappeared and Mia tilted her head as she said, "I'm sorry Naruto-kun, but I have no idea what you're talking about." Naruto pouted but he grinned and with his Sharingan an illusion of a small fox kid was behind him with big sorrowful eyes and it was whining. Mia's eyes widened and she cooed before picking him up and kissing his face lovingly before she sat down in a 2-person chair at the table, setting her beloved ashikabi beside her. The new girls were smiling and the short black-haired Sekirei in the purple and yellow unitard was glancing between Naruto and Yukari. "I believe her name is Ichiya," Naruto thought as he saw the dark green-haired girl looking at Yukari while Oriya, the girl who had spoken to him before, was looking at him adoringly while the final Sekirei was staring at both Naruto and Yukari. "Okay, so there's Ichiya and I believe she said her name is Katsuragi. Those two are reacting to both of us. Toyotama, the weapons user, is only reacting to Yukari and the cute little thing Oriya is reacting to me." Naruto cleared his throat as Ikki, Yahan and the twins brought the food in along with Musubi, who made a huge amount of curry. "Okay, so just so you all know this, I only sleep with at least 4 of you when we go to bed. Just sleeping for now. We can figure out a schedule. For those of you that have just got here, you will have your chance. Ichiya and Katsuragi, you're reacting to both Yukari and myself, right? Well, Musubi is mine and Yukari's Sekirei. We figured out that 2 ashikabi could wing the same Sekirei. So if you wish to, we can do that too. Yukari is also my girlfriend in public eye, seeing as she's the only other human here aside from myself. So Toyotama, I know you are reacting to Yukari and you feel confused about me, but don't worry, I won't be a bother towards your relationship. Now let's eat." They all proceeded to gather food on their plates and the new girls all cooed at how Mia was feeding Naruto and asked if they could do it too sometime. There was a chorus of, "Yeah, of course, he's our sweet angel." To which Naruto just groaned. After they finished eating, Naruto explained about himself and where he came from. He took his prosthetic off, which made the new girls tear up a little bit before he shushed them. He then told them about the restaurant next door and how he was opening tomorrow. They were all very happy and they went to the living room so Naruto and Yukari could wing the unwinged girls. Naruto pulled Oriya to him and said, "You're just the most adorable thing. I think I like the fact that we're the same height." He then kissed her and she kissed him back, holding herself to him as her wings flashed behind her. They were a deep purple in color and shaped like many gears like that of a clock. "These flying gears represent my pledge. Cut away the enemies before my Akishabi." Naruto gently kissed her forehead and said, "Thank you for choosing me, Ori-chan." She blushed and went to sit down as Naruto watched Yukari kiss Toyotama, groping the green net a little as her wings burst out looking like Naginata. Naruto and Yukari then kissed and Matsu pushed Ichiya towards them saying, "You need to kiss Naruto-tan and Yukari-tan." Ichiya blushed a bit before kissing the two as her wings burst from her back. "Legs of my pledge crush everybody holding a grudge against my Ashikabi," she said as she hugged the two Ashikabi to her. "I love you both so much, my Ashikabi." Naruto used his Mokuton to make a step stool and kissed Ichiya's cheek. She went and sat down as Katsuragi shyly stepped forward and Yukari glomped the shy girl, pulling her into a hug before grabbing Naruto and kissing them both at the same time. Rusty red wings burst from her back as she said, "By the iron will of my pledge, my Ashikabi's foes would be decimated." Naruto went outside Yukari, taking Toyotama, Ichiya, and Katsuragi to her room. Naruto decided it'd be better that they sleep with her tonight. He knew he'd have a pile of women laying on him after Karasuba fucked the life out of him. He sat down on the grass and meditated, trying to calm himself after his day. Uzume had left, showing the new girls the bath so they could unwind. The twins were doing the dishes with Yahan, so that just left Matsu, Musubi, Oriya, Miya, and Karasuba outside watching Naruto. Naruto's eyes shot open and he looked at Musubi for a second before saying, "Why does Musubi have two souls inside of her?"
That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and do comments.